And we're back.
Check the 1212 when it's beef. Hey, we kind of official now. I ain't gonna lie to you.
We in this.
That's what we do. The Brofessors
doing the damn thing.
Welcome back.
Oh shit.
The Brofies, Professors, Riz.
Sponsored by Casey's. Just kidding. We wish. Pay us to do this.
Hey, Casey's. We need that.
I mean business whenever I walk in the room. I be eating it, ain't never off no silver spoon. Blowing up now.
Sponsored by Inspect 360.
Yes, where we inspect your home before you buy it.
Not 360 times, but 360 degrees of your home property will be inspected.
Boom.
Like that. Promotion Media Group. We do everything media. If I can't figure it out, I have an AI tool that will. That's my new slogan. You like that?
I do like that.
So we're back. It's been a minute, but we appreciate you tuning in to episode. This is either 3 or 4. I think it's 4. So we good. Thank you for following our podcast on anywhere you love podcasts and subscribing to our YouTube channel. We appreciate all of that. Find us on the Brofessors social media accounts listed below. That's what we do. We're back, man. We're over the hangover of the Super Bowl loss, and we're gonna move on with our lives. Because it's hockey, basketball, baseball season.
Just had to bring it up.
I did. We did. One more time.
I think we got 24 games in NBA left.
Yeah, the Thunder are doing their thizzle.
Dude, they're killing it. I can't wait to watch some playoff basketball.
It's been a long time since the Thunder have been fun to watch.
Been a long time.
Since Westbrook left. I haven't had fun watching the Thunder until this season.
Last season was okay, but Chet not being there. Was it last year Chet wasn't in?
Yeah, this is like Chet's a rookie.
Yeah. And he's balling.
And Shea is balling.
He's going to set a rookie record for Thunder and Supersonics. Because he just blocks and scores and dishes the rock.
First rookie in NBA history with 100 threes and 100 blocks in a season.
That's crazy.
Wow. And Shea's putting up 88 MJ type numbers.
Did they win last night?
The last game I think was the Rockets, and we beat them.
Oh yeah, they did beat the Rockets.
So we're excited for that. We're ready for the Thunder to make a good push through the playoffs. But
that'll be fun to watch.
But today's not a sports episode. We talked about sports a lot the last episode. We have something heavy to talk about this week because you and I are JFK assassination conspiracy theory nuts.
Did you know that
and there's some new information out.
The term conspiracy theory was planted by the CIA.
Good. So they pretty much just give us all the words to use to describe.
They were like, oh, anybody that thinks other than what we tell you is
you're a weirdo.
This.
Yeah.
And so
if you don't take everything we say at face value, there has to be something wrong with you. Let's just overlook the fact that we murder everybody that tries to do.
So you're more
productive.
You're definitely more of a, I wouldn't say expert, but we'll call you an expert.
I'll take it.
Yeah, in the JFK assassination. What do you know about?
First, I'll tell you that there are 3 things, because Friends is part of this also. There are 3 things that I feel like I can talk about almost any detail with extreme conviction. Friends, the TV show, which we proved the other night during Heads Up.
You did.
Which is embarrassing, but we'll move on.
And I didn't understand any of it. I was like, I know who Rachel is.
Right.
You know?
Facts. The O.J. Simpson case and trial. And
we might need to talk about that a little.
Well, episode 5, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
That's a whole episode. I'm telling you, we could do an entire episode about JFK right now and do OJ next week, and I would be ecstatic.
All right.
I know an inordinate amount about both of these. It's actually kind of embarrassing. But to your question, what I know for sure, because there's only a few things that we know for sure. Here's what I know for sure. This wasn't one guy. It wasn't one shooter. And more than anything else, something more happened than what they told us. I don't think anybody can debate this.
Right.
There are millions and millions of pages of documents that the government still hasn't completely released. The old adage is, if you're not lying, if you're not hiding anything, Or if you're telling the truth, why are you hiding?
There you go.
Right? That's what it is. If you're telling the truth about what happened, then why are, still half of the documents redacted? So that's what we know for sure.
Yeah.
There's something else that happened that we haven't been told truthfully. Will we ever know everything? Of course not.
No, not unless some badass cyber hacker just hops in the government system and I don't know. It could be there might not even be a digital copy of these things. It's probably all some type of file.
You can't recover ash.
Yeah.
All the important stuff is burned.
It's all burned.
Yeah, it's all in the air. So, I mean, there's going to be details we won't know for sure. But here's what I tend to lean toward as far as who's responsible for this deal. I did watch a documentary by... it's based off of a book by a guy that's called Mortal Error, and it's written by a ballistics expert. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I'll put it in the description. And in a nutshell, he describes the fatal headshot of JFK as an accident by an M16 rifle carried by a Secret Serviceman in the trail car. Essentially, the shooting starts, and we know that he's shot from multiple different directions probably, but that the fatal shot happened as the Secret Serviceman up to the M16 to try to return fire and just maybe hit a bump or just squeeze the trigger on accident. And there's ballistic evidence, according to this book and this author, that the round that struck the skull came from a different angle, and the explosion on this front right side of the head was actually an exit wound, sending the head backwards, which would mean that he was shot from the rear left, which would be where the trail car was. There's evidence that supports a Secret Serviceman did have an M16 in the car that they've since redacted records of and tried to cover up. This Secret Serviceman has never been interviewed, even though they know who he is. And there's a lot of cover-up surrounding that. So I believe that he makes a good case for it. You should either read the book or watch the documentary called The Smoking Gun, which is on Prime right now. Shout out to Prime. That will give you a lot of information that at least introduces a new possibility of an idea of something that may have happened. I think that there's strength in that idea as far as a possibility. I don't know that it's definitely what happened, but it is. If this research is accurate and if this guy is telling the truth about what he found, then that part is a possibility. But that doesn't explain everything else that happened. This really only explains the headshot because of the ballistics of the round's direction and the fact that the round that struck the skull in the left rear is actually a smaller caliber than what Oswald was firing, and smaller caliber than the other wounds that were afflicted on these people.
How many wounds did he have? Was it 3?
So,
because he
has, if you count entry and exit, there's more than 3.
Okay.
There's one in the back, one in the neck, which is, according to the investigation, the Warren report, is the same round. They're calling the wound in the front of the throat, they're calling it an exit wound. So the story...
See, that's, to me, in my opinion, that's the Oswald shot. Yeah. Maybe he was going for the head. Maybe he missed. Who knows? But you can see that shot clearly in the video because he grabs his throat.
The front of the throat, yeah.
And he kind of starts leaning down.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody had to finish the job.
Right. So the official theory that includes the magic bullet is one shot in the back out through the throat, and then they have to account for another shot that didn't hit anybody, that missed because somebody under an underpass, like a bystander, was struck with something. Either struck with a piece of concrete after a ricochet or actually struck with a round, grazed his face or something like that. So they officially have to account for that because he's got a documented wound. So now you're down to 2 shots already in the span of 6 seconds, I believe it is. And then the third shot is the fatal shot. Now, the magic bullet is accounted for in there as having caused 7 wounds to Kennedy and Connolly in front of him. There's I don't remember exactly the track, but it comes through, I think it's actually the back shot. It comes out into his back, out of his neck, and then it turns, hits his wrist, comes out his wrist, and plants in his leg. Oh, I'm sorry, out his wrist. Oh, that's Connolly, sorry. So it turns a lot, and then it goes through Connolly's back, through Connolly's wrist, and into Connolly's thigh.
Is he the passenger front man?
He's the governor of Texas that's sitting right in front of Kennedy.
Okay.
So you have one bullet that's supposedly causing 7 wounds between the two guys, and then the official document, the official record of that wound is a totally pristine bullet that has no damage. What? How does that happen? We crushed a rib, we crushed a wrist, we went through a back, through a throat, and into a thigh, and it's like it was never even fired.
No, anybody that's watched anything about a bullet knows that the bullet has markings. It looks weird and crushed, and there's no way it's just a pristine, perfect bullet.
Not even so. If you've even seen those bullets from that rifle, they even have a hollow curved tip. They're designed to mushroom. They're not designed to pierce. It's supposed to mushroom. That's the point of the round. So the fact that it's not even, like, it's got a little dent on the side, but it's not even deformed in any other way. And this was supposed to cause 7 wounds to 2 grown adult males through bone and everything.
So
that's the
government's
that's
involved,
the official,
right?
Yeah.
I think the CIA or whoever had to be CIA, but the Secret Service, in my opinion, was tainted at some point. You know, somebody got paid off or threatened, blackmailed, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, recently, the video that I seen I forgot when the dude actually had his interview about it, but what was his name? William Cooper. He says the driver is the one that shot Kennedy. Mm-hmm. And as I showed you a little bit ago, that video is something I had never seen until a couple of days ago, right? And
the video in general, or the focus on the driver? The
focus on the driver. Everything you've seen of the Kennedy, everybody who's been interested in the assassination has seen the graphic video of him getting shot, right? Mm-hmm. But it's always been zoomed in on him. You never see the driver, passenger. You see him, his wife, and her scrambling to grab parts of his matter that have exploded off. Like, she's freaking out. That's what everybody's seeing. It's like so graphic that really you don't even think to pay attention to anybody else.
Yeah.
But this clip that I showed you shows clearly the driver turning around as he's driving after the first shot. Okay, so Kennedy slumps after the throat shot, or back front exit, he slumps. The wife looks at him, and then you can see, if you're paying attention to the driver, turn around with his left arm. What looks to be like a pistol, I don't see how you can deny that it's a pistol, turns around, boom, fires a shot, hits Kennedy in the head. It explodes everywhere. It's such close range that it makes sense that that's how it happened.
Sure.
And this, I don't know if this would denounce what you just said, right, about the entry wound coming from the back for the skull to explode. But this, a bullet coming from the front, from that side, that angle.
From less than 3 feet away.
Less than 3 feet, with a caliber that's smaller because it's a pistol. Right. Whether it be 9, most likely 9 millimeter, or I guess it could be a 40, but I don't even know what that would, who knows?
Kind of round, it depends on the kind of round too. The reaction of the wound would depend on what type of round it was. I mean, if it was designed like a hollow point to explode, then the wound would be different.
Yeah. But you see, he turns, fire after he's shot, immediately whips back around.
With no reaction.
And gets back to driving.
Yeah.
Because, like, if I would have seen the president, I'm Secret Service member driving, I'm in charge of you. If I seen his head get blown off, are you going to floor it, scramble? Are you going to get the hell out of there? Or are you just going to be like, oh, shit.
Yeah, you're going to get the hell out of there for sure.
Yeah.
And The accounts are that he did. Here's what I think, because I just watched that version of the video this morning right before we hit record, and I had never seen it. It actually took me a minute to even see the turn and all of that, because it is pretty. It's old footage, and it's pretty grainy. But here's the thing. The timing of it is way too convenient to not be significant.
Yeah.
Because you do clearly see him turn. And you can make out and this is my opinion, but you can make out what looks like some type of reach with an arm and what can be interpreted as a pistol, an object of some kind. It's not really clear in my opinion, but the timing of it makes it more compelling to me that right at the time that it appears he turns around and appears to reach, the shot happens. Yeah. And as soon as the shot happens, he's right back around. Mm-hmm. No other reaction at all.
Right.
And again, it's very difficult to see exactly what's going on, but that alone, just kind of the timing of it, is compelling enough to me. It looks like what happens is driving with the right, turns around with the left, pop, turns back around.
Yeah. And just the sheer amount of explosion off of the head tells me that it was close range.
Right. What is interesting to me, though, is no other passenger in the car, A, sees him do it because they're all focused on the back seat.
Exactly.
Or B, reacts to a shot from that close.
Right.
That would be kind of the only thing that would make me question it. But it's pandemonium in that moment. And who knows how many shots are being fired.
And at this point, maybe the governor is already shot.
Yeah, he's
so
dead.
You
shot
don't know
already.
what the hell's going on.
He's shot around the same time the throat shot happens.
He might think the driver is firing at somebody else.
Could be. And like I said, there's probably, if what everybody believes is true, is that there are at least two, if not more, people firing at the same time, then that one shot can get kind of lost in the mix. So it's definitely possible that happened.
It's mind-blowing. And if you want to see that clip, just go to X and put in JFK driver shot.
Yeah.
So forth. This theory was brought up.
We'll play it for you, too, while we're talking about
this. This theory was brought up by, I believe his name's William Cooper, but he's also gone. I think he was killed. I can't remember. But yeah. I mean, it blew my mind that theory has never been even brought up.
Well, that's what's crazy is you have a half dozen at least different theories about who's actually responsible for pulling triggers and why this even happened and what organizations are even involved in orchestrating this deal. All of that stuff it's important because it's all possible, but it's really moot to a degree because one thing we know for sure is that every one of them is being covered up by the government's own narrative of what happened. Yeah. So
it's not even a narrative at this point. They know the truth.
They know we know they're lying.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter.
And it's like, what's there to lie about?
Right. If you didn't do it. Yeah. Right.
And it's all mind-blowing to me that, and that was when was he assassinated?
63.
That's crazy.
Almost 60 years ago. Well, over 60 years ago now.
Yeah. So things like this have been implemented for over 60 years.
Mm-hmm. And they refuse to release all the records. And like I said, if you didn't do it.
But if things like that have happened.
What are you lying for?
And as far and developed as technology has came since 60 years ago, I mean, just think about everything else they could be implanting.
Oh, yeah.
That we just have no idea about. But
the internet in general was created as a government tool, and they just ended up having to release it to the public because somebody leaked it as a technology. So they've got technologies that we don't even know exist. Oh, and by the time we learn about it, they've been using it.
Yeah.
For decades. So, it's unfortunate that there are so many possibilities that were never looked into. And it's really kind of like we talked about before the cameras got on. It's really a brazen thing that the government does. They shoot their own president and this is a theory that the government is involved. I'm pretty pretty much everybody agrees to some degree that some levels, if not multiple levels of government, are involved in orchestrating this deal. And they shoot their own president in broad daylight in front of thousands of people and don't care who saw it, because they'll just tell them your account is incorrect. They maybe didn't think about the possibility of someone having a video camera, but even though they did, doesn't matter. We're going to tell our story and there's nothing you're going to do about it. And that's what is the wildest part about it to me.
Yeah, they're still on. It was one shooter. It was Oswald. He did it.
Move on with your lives.
Leave it at that.
Oliver Stone is the one who, the writer-director who built the JFK movie that Kevin Costner was in 91, I think. Kevin Costner, Joe Pesci. It's really long. Pause. Pretty good movie, though. But it's the same type of deal. It introduces different conspiracy possibilities. Doesn't really ever say we think this is what happened, but it does say it tells a story about the New Orleans DA who investigates this one guy and organization in particular from Dallas, and how he thinks that this one person was involved in a conspiracy. So this actually happened, but it's Oliver Stone's interpretation of all of these events and introducing new conspiracy ideas. So I had watched that movie a lot when I was younger.
And even that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And since then, Oliver Stone has unturned a lot of other stones.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And he, you mentioned that he was on Joe Rogan probably talking about the case too. And last year, he published a 4-part documentary series after some more of the records were released and some more information came out, kind of telling a more complete story, basically about the lies that were told. It's narrated by Whoopi Goldberg and Donald Sutherland, and there's all kinds of different expert interviews that talk about the happenings of that day, witness accounts of things that surrounded the event, and really just evidence that this thing didn't happen the way that they say it did. Very good. You should check it out. It's on Prime.
What would be the government's motive to do something like that?
My short answer in questions like this is money. It all comes down to money.
Or power, right? I mean, if JFK is going on, he was setting a trend, right? He was one of the most popular presidents, if not obviously at the time, that was setting change, right? He was all about different change.
Yep.
Was he the greatest person? Probably not. No one is. He definitely had his share of mistakes as a man, but a president and leader, he was definitely doing some things correctly, going off of a path that the government, possibly the CIA, didn't want him to go towards, and took him off.
As is a pattern in history, when someone is upsetting the establishment, disrupting the establishment, because let's make no mistake, the government or the president does not run this country.
Right.
Anytime someone is going against the grain and disrupting what's established, not anytime, but several times throughout history, those people's lives are ended in very strange, abrupt, questionable ways. JFK's own brother is another example. They killed both of them.
Yeah.
They killed both Kennedys because,
he was on his way.
Martin Luther King was assassinated. There's always a fall guy. Somebody always takes the fall. Somebody's got to be to blame. They got the guy who did it.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln was assassinated.
Robert Kennedy was on his way to winning a lot. He was running some things. He was doing great, loved by the people, and boom, he was killed.
So, and I know that not everybody agrees with these individuals' personal convictions or their personal agendas or whatever, but I think everyone can agree that the intention of each of these people was equality, progress, doing things differently for the betterment of society in general. And though you may not agree with certain methods or certain ideas, I think the overall intention is improvement and relationships with each other as a country And why are these the people that are getting taken out by whomever?
As of right now, it's like the very broad and early stages of the beginning of a revolution, right? Technology has came so close to all these matters, right? And we can see everything now. Back then, we could not see all these things. We saw what mainstream media wanted you to see, which was obviously controlled by the government, and still is.
Yeah.
The only thing that's not controlled by the government right now is old Twitter,
Right.
or X now. And that's because it was purchased by Elon. We've discussed that one or two times, but that it still has some algorithm issues, but as far as we know, it's freedom, you know. And it might be a little much and a little extra at times, definitely. But we can see all these things happening in front of our eyes now, and, you know, people are waking up. They're like, okay, how do we change this? Which hints to the election and why people are leaning towards the Trump, you know, and all this other stuff when it comes to the political nonsense and where our future is. I'm really just curious to see what it looks like in 6-7 months when the election stuff happens.
Yeah.
You know, it's like somebody that's going to ultimately change. If Vivek Ramaswamy runs as vice with Trump, Trump's going to win. It's going to happen. RFK, who is Robert Kennedy's son, is running as an independent, great candidate. He's all about change. He's been suing the government for 30, 40 years or something like that. What if they take one of these guys out?
Yeah, I think going back to kind of what you touched on a second ago, the digital age that we're in, this is kind of sidebar, but semi-related, so just stay with me. The digital age that we're in now, I don't think has changed people. I think it's just given people a window into each other. You know, where before, just think about, you know, things like racial and political divide in America. You know, these two different conflicting sides, these opposite sides, have never changed how they feel. It's just they were able to kind of just keep it to themselves in the past. And now we're all up in each other's business, and now we can see what each other thinks, and it's causing more of a divide than anything. And then over time, you know, your national news outlets chose sides. So now you have all of these different mediums contributing to the divisiveness. And while they're great tools for certain things, they continue to keep us more and more divided, in that, you know, we just, everyone has something to say nowadays. Everyone wants to say something, and nobody wants to listen is the big problem. You know, when I bring up the news networks because everybody, it's such a bipartisan country. Everyone watches who they agree with. They watch who they're comfortable watching. And of course, if you are only listening and only watching people who you already agree with, will never progress, and you're going to continue to agree with them, and they know that. That's why they're feeding you the things that they're feeding you, because they know that you already agree with them. They're catering to their audience. Yes,
and I agree with all that. And I think that's why debating is so important, in proper debates, podcasts, where like if a Trump, a Biden, and an RFK could all sit in one pod and just talk.
And listen.
How different would things be, instead of just saying you're wrong,
right?
You know, which that would be literally the most viewed thing ever if that happened.
If everybody could listen.
First of all, we know Biden couldn't hold a conversation. He would be eating ice cream, and
I don't know that there has ever been a president, much less two presidents in a row, where the people who voted for him by the end of his first term vastly regretted it. Like two presidents in a row, this has happened now. for the most part. Right. It's probably more for Biden than it was for Trump. But there are people who voted for both of these guys who were like, "What was I thinking?" Mm-hmm. Has that ever happened 2 times in a row? I really don't think so.
Yeah,
it's. I don't know enough about politics to get too deep in the trenches about it.
I'm not huge in it.
My guy Austin Chandler, shout to him. He can get on here and he could talk all day about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But one thing I know for sure is the truth and the logical step is always somewhere in the middle of these polar opposite stances, which is why I like independent candidates.
Same.
Because we've been in a position where it's been the lesser of 2 evils, quote unquote, for several elections now. But it's not just 2. There are other options. There are people out there who make more sense than anybody. You're not going to agree with everybody, but who is the best of the pool? And why are we only sticking to clearly the 2 worst of the pool?
Yeah. Why does it have to be like that?
And again, it goes back to my answer is always money. Because there's a reason that we continue to drive these divisive agendas. Somebody somewhere, this is just my cynicism and probably my conspiracy theory mindset, but somebody somewhere is benefiting off of continuing to divide us as a people.
Absolutely. That's the whole, when you divide, you create, people get pissed off, right? And so who are you going to be mad at? It creates money, it creates power. Then you go to war and all these things. And war drives a lot of it. How many of these multi-billion, trillion-dollar companies, whether it be BlackRock or these other companies that make a shit ton of money off just defensive weapons, or weapons, bioweapons, and because the government has to spend millions and billions and trillions of dollars on us defending, our country, which I'm all about.
Right. We gotta have defense.
Right. I'm okay with us spending money there, and a shit ton of it to be advanced and I can't even
technologically
say. Yes, technologically advanced, powerful. Jesus.
Sorry, man, we the Brofessors.
Yeah. Motherfuck.
Man, it's early, man. You probably got a sugar rush from that coffee.
Oh, damn.
Too, so.
But anyways, I'm okay with all that. Let's spend money on our military and defense.
Right.
Right. But the companies that get paid, the Raytheons, all these other huge companies, there's only a couple of them, and they get so much money. And if those people run or have parts in our political stance or our government, they're going to benefit.
Right.
And so if they're the ones that are basically teeing up all the stuff in the media, for instance, creating the mayhem that causes war, it makes all the sense,
right,
to me.
And the 2 old communications business adages are controversy sells, and if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
So that means all the negative stuff is going to get the most attention, and it's super unfortunate.
Technologically advanced.
There you go, man. We'll just use that, and we'll cut that in to when you wanted to say it the first time. But,
damn.
I mean, it's crazy, and it's we'll have to say this for another episode because I don't want to get you started. But it goes back to the 9/11 deal. Was this orchestrated for? War is big business.
I mean, we don't have to talk about that long, and they're just like blatant facts in that situation that they're like, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
We could have prevented.
Fire off a few.
Well, we could have prevented it, right? Mm-hmm. It almost looks like when you look at everything, these pilots were trained by somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. But they're supposed to have red flags on their names.
Right.
And we know who they are, but yet we still let them fly a plane into these buildings. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Well, what about all the other bullshit? There's recordings of people saying there's bombs going off inside. Mm-hmm. There's bombs going off inside
the building after the crashes.
Yes. And makes sense if you've ever seen a demo on big buildings.
Right.
bomb, 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 and then it collapses. I don't think a plane hitting that huge of a structure, let alone two of them, is going to make it collapse, especially in the short amount of time that it happens. Just doesn't happen. Third building, World Trade Center 7. Nobody ever talks about, but it fell and collapsed too. How?
Yeah.
How? Well, the only way is it was demoed, or, because the plane surely didn't hit it.
Right.
How do you explain that? And it's never really been explained.
Yeah.
The Pentagon's hit. Okay. By what? A plane. There's no plane wreckage anywhere at the Pentagon in the site. And matter of fact, the hole size is very small. The only video clip they have is from a security guard camera, and it looks like all you see is a white line.
Half a frame.
Half a frame, and it's a little white line that comes through, and you see the explosion.
I didn't know there was no plane wreckage. That's interesting.
Yeah. Go look through all the old video footage of 9/11 Pentagon.
Yeah. I'll admit I haven't really looked into any conspiracy theories regarding 9/11, but
You should, because it's the most interesting one since JFK.
yeah, I'm not a pilot, obviously, but it also never made sense to me, the Pentagon specifically. Why you would come in at ground level instead of just diving?
Well, if you look, it looks like a missile.
Yeah,
right?
I've seen that video.
Okay, but what was it, a day before? The day before, they announced that there's $27 trillion, or I can't remember the amount. It was huge.
It was huge.
Yeah, I think it was 27 trillion or 2.7 trillion. It was a lot of money, right? Untraceable. We don't know where it's at. This is the day before 9/11, or it was 2 days before 9/11. Somebody comes out and announces it. God, I can't think of the name, but they're like, "Hey, we're missing this amount of money. We don't know where it's at." Well, the Pentagon should know where it's at. Right. Y'all are in charge of this shit. All our money is where? Okay. Supposedly, where those documents would have been is the side that was hit.
Really?
Supposedly.
Interesting.
There was a few higher ups that weren't at work that day. They didn't call in, or they, said they weren't going to make it, or had something going that day. There's just a lot of fucking iffy things going on.
So money,
yeah, money. Yeah. But where'd it go? Where does the government, whether it's defense or where does $27 trillion go, or whatever the amount is? Even let's just call it $2 trillion. That's a lot of money. Where does that go?
I don't know, man. This is where I typically resign in the conversation.
And that's in 2001.
Around this time in the conversation is where I typically go, I don't know, man. I just mind my own business.
Hey,
that's usually where it ends for me. Because again, much like the JFK thing, like we talked about before, we really believe this stuff is happening. Nobody's doubting that it's happening. But what are we going to do about it? If it's really happening at that level,
right?
What are we going to do?
And there's no way we should stress about it, as disheartening as it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, we can't do anything about it. I'm not going to stress over it, but I would love to talk to you about it.
No, we're definitely going to talk about it. Yeah. It's just, the point that I'm making is, if we really believe the government is this powerful and they have this much control, and I do believe that, then why am I going to stress over it? What am I going to do to change it? And not to say that you shouldn't speak out and you shouldn't try for progressive change or anything like that. All that's great. You should vote, and you should protest, and you should do things to try to get better as a people. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to break my back trying to fight the government, who's already proven that they don't care about anything or anyone. And if they're as powerful as we know they are, what I'm going to do is going to be a blip on the radar at best. All I can do is focus on living my happy little life and do the best I can with that.
Right. That's all we can do, is focus on us and our families and the people close to us. Because when you start, what am I going to do? storm the Capitol, you know, like,
That,
let me just stomp up there and be like,
5 years ago,
you fuckers, World Trade Center 7 didn't fucking just blow up.
5 years ago, the term "what am I going to do? Storm the Capitol" would have been the most ridiculous thing anyone's ever heard. And
Yeah.
now you're like, oh man,
somebody
that
did
actually
that.
did happen.
Oh,
Jesus.
turns out there was government entities and federal agents in that whole deal. Like, it's all corrupt. It's all one big ass fucking shit show.
Yeah. I do like the digital age for what the knowledge that it's giving people, because we're no longer just going to bend over and take the whooping anymore. We're at least going to tell you that we know you're lying to us before you punish us and keep us locked up and, continue to lie to us. At least we as a people are learning how much your oppression goes.
Yeah. And it's so crazy to see where we're headed. We're at a very crazy turning point. Millennials, gosh, and people a little older than us and people in their 60s, 70s, like, we've seen so much change and things happen in our just short span of time, right? We've went from the very first video games to the internet to phones to satellite to all these other things.
Cars driving themselves. And like, if we're blessed to make it to 60, 70, imagine all the shit we're going to see then. Right.
The world could we could just be totally different. They might, the big entities might succeed at the one world government shit. There would be revolution and war before that all happened. And,
right.
But crypto is this huge thing now, which they had a huge day yesterday. Bitcoin's at like 64,000 a coin. Everything's rising. Digital currency should not be blocked, but the government wants to block it and make it its own. The government wants to take control of that too, but that's not what it was designed for. The creator, Satoshi, made Bitcoin the way it is for a reason. And now all these other things are being put in place for it. All these other coins and altcoins and blockchains to make everything like, no, you can't own this because this is what it is. It's so, and fuck, we could talk about that forever because it's its own thing, right? It would take, and the knowledge, most people are still like, oh, you're talking about Bitcoin. Like, I don't know what that is, but
I have a very limited knowledge in it. So I would love to talk about it.
But most people do.
Yeah.
And we're getting off topic, of course, but I'm just saying, like, those are the things of the future. Web3, all these other things that are just now being implanted and coming to life that in 20, 30 years are going to be like, dude, do you remember when Bitcoin first came out? They're talking about Bitcoin being 150,000 by 2025 or in the midst of 2025. The government, because the US dollar is just shit, is almost not going to have a choice, in my opinion, but to take and use what is there. Because real cash money has been put into these things. I don't know, man.
Let's talk about it.
I'm going off a little bit.
I'd love to be educated on what that is. Like, I know kind of what it is, but I don't really know what it is. To me, it's just like, all money's digital now.
It could be all used the same, right? And different coins can be used for different things. But, okay, do you know what a blockchain is?
No.
Okay, so Ethereum and Solana, these are blockchains, right? So, you know what an NFT is? Okay, so NFTs get put onto a blockchain. That's yours forever. Okay, non-fungible token. If you create it, and it's yours forever unless you sell it. Okay, and you can take anything and make it into an NFT. So much that, so a blockchain basically tells you who the original maker is, who the original purchaser is, who owns it, and you can transfer that, you can sell that, and so forth. But it's a digital copy of just anything. Just think of it. Like, it could be a house, it could be real estate. Matter of fact, there have been deals that have been bought in Bitcoin, like real estate deals with Bitcoin. things like that, like your digital imprint, you're not going to be able to fake that. Mm-hmm. It's so hard to just kind of explain. I would literally have to read off some shit to you to really let your head understand it all. But it's the future, and you can mark my words on today, which people have known this for a long time, and people that believe that it's the next big thing. Because to me, the way everything's going, there's no way it's not going to be the next big thing, and it could take one huge event. A huge market crash, a huge currency issue, a huge war for everything to just change. And hey man, everything's digital now, you know. And if you own those things when that happens, you know, you're just going to be better off.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
The only problem with things being so digital now is any time if the circuit blows or if somebody turns off the lights, we're all screwed.
Yeah.
We saw a little bit of that with the nationwide AT&T outage a few days ago.
Which supposedly was a cyber attack that they're not telling us about.
Of course, why would they? Other people are saying maybe it was just a dry run. I mean, people are saying things in jest, but I mean, It's possible. You know, I've said for a long time, because I work in the internet we all use the internet, but I work in digital marketing, which is an internet, like it's all internet.
Well, if you're China or Russia, or let's say it was a cyber attack, and you have the United States of America, who's supposed to be the most powerful country in the world, with a senior citizen that should be in a fucking nursing home running our country
in a facility.
Why wouldn't you be like, hey man, let's test run this little cyber shit real quick.
See how far we can get.
Let's see what AT&T's talking about. Let's take out 60% of their.
Go ahead and send a couple balloons over there.
And the dude at AT&T might be like, hey, dude, go for it.
Yeah, just do it. Yeah.
Run it back. Hey, run it. I'll give everybody $5 afterwards. Yeah. We'll call it good.
I've said for a long time that we're so dependent on the internet that if the lights ever went out completely worldwide, we'd be back to...
It's pandemonium.
We'd be back to the Stone Age. We wouldn't have anything. We would know how to do things. Like millennials would know how to do things because we're from before the internet. But we wouldn't have any resources to do it because it's all internet-based.
Well, people would resort to what? Stealing, looting,
anarchy,
killing.
Yeah.
Right. For maybe not $1, but for some water.
To survive.
Yeah. And that's, dude, learning how to like just survive.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it's, raising a chicken on in a chicken coop, or being able to plant a tomato and growing it, or potatoes and letting it thrive. Learning those things are huge factors in life whenever something like that happens.
Yeah, learning basic things. Because think about this: everything else aside, just think about the money. I don't care. I have no cash. The internet goes down. All of my money is gone, inaccessible.
And it can happen like that.
It can happen like this. Not only that, but I would have to steal because every store in the world wouldn't have access to any systems for me to pay for anything.
Yeah.
I would have to.
And do you think it's going to be a little bit of stealing? No. People are going to go in there and steal pallets of water and pallets of hot Cheetos.
And then you have to the people that are stealing out of necessity aren't the end of it. They're going to be people looting and killing because they can. Because all of your security systems are down. There's people everywhere anyway, so who's ever gonna I'm gonna get away with everything. And why wouldn't I? I would have to, especially when everybody else hits the streets to loot. I gotta get out there now because nothing's gonna be left for me. It's like the internet really controls the fate of the world.
Today,
in
for
its
sure.
palm.
Yeah.
If the internet just wiped out right now, every developed country with internet is back to Stone Age.
Right. But yet the countries that really don't resort to the internet as much as they should, with they're just learning off internet, and they still live in their tribe, and or there's people that definitely don't even know what internet is.
Right.
Right? There's tribes and people that live out there that have no idea what the internet is.
Right. They'd be fine.
And they're going to be just fine.
There are people in America who will be just fine. There are people who are prepared for things like this. Like,
doomsday preppers, like
right.
those cats are going to be thriving.
But your everyday person like me, I'm hurting.
Like,
we're
my money's gone. My what's gone?
We got nothing.
Oh shit, my phone's fucked.
Yeah, and it's really kind of really a sobering thought.
This has been a factor in talk. Not to cut you off. This has been talked about with me and my wife most recently in like the last 3 or 4 months. You know, not necessarily do we think the world is in shambles, because it always has been, right? At least since we've been alive. It's always been this weird war, Mongol type world that we live in. But recently, like, okay, so what's our goals? Like, if shit hit the fan, how would we survive? And we've talked about it, like, well, instead of a big house, let's go get some land and build some shit, grab some solar wind farm type power, and get a well drilled to an aquifer, and have a chicken coop, because those are things that make sense in today's world. If like a World War III happens and everything's gone, like those are the things that you need.
Right.
And, you know, it's not a keeping up with the Joneses for me. It's a survival mechanism to just, let's maybe live off the grid, or learn how to, I already know how to garden, you know, a little bit, because I grew a lot of marijuana. And I've grown veggies and been successful with some veggies, but now we're going a step farther. Like, we want to build a huge garden. We want to do multiple gardens with potatoes and onions and all the things that we eat a lot, cabbage and, you know, things like that. Those are the goals now that we've recently talked about. It's like, okay, which is so weird from a year ago, what our goals might have been. And, I think a lot more people should probably take that route if they think the world is going in the direction that a lot of people think it's going.
Yeah. That's definitely something that I've thought about. Not too far in depth, but definitely something I'll think about more, is just kind of, not only is the world going in a direction that it's going to, you know, implode, or, you know, just World War III, or just,
and it might not go that way,
destroy itself.
It might not.
But if at any moment, this is what I'm thinking, it could happen right now, the internet could just stop working. And that would put everybody back.
And it's so much as
30 years, if not more.
It's so much as, well, let's just say the internet went out for a year. The first 3 months of that, you know, people are going to have to go back to using paper.
It's going to feel like COVID.
You know, the newspaper is going to come back, and like, no, we'll take a whole 20-year step back for a whole year. Like, because the internet in the United States, what do they say? It's like a bunch of fiber optic cords that are ran at sea under, you know, in the ocean from somewhere else across the pond. So if somebody just went down there and snipped some shit, it's a wrap for a little bit. Like, you can't just go in there and fix that. You have to rewire everything.
Right.
That could take a long time. And so I mean, let's just say it happened. What are you doing first if internet goes out?
I don't know, man.
People are storming grocery stores.
Well, here's
are you
how
hopping in there? Are you going to the grocery store?
You would have to, because here's how it would unfold. If somebody, and I've just for illustration purposes, let's just say somebody just flipped a switch and turned the internet off. The internet is nowhere across the world. Think about all that affects immediately. Your
everything.
Money is locked up, gone, if it's even there anymore. Your phones don't work. So your computers don't work. So the initial panic is going to be, what's going on? Because I can't get my news from anybody else. Nobody knows what's going on that I can talk to in person, because all of your news outlets, you can't get anything from them anymore. The internet doesn't work. You can't call anybody from another state, or you can't call anybody anymore because the internet doesn't work. Like, you don't even know what happened for who knows how long, because everybody that you can talk to about, hey, I can't go across the street to my neighbors and say, hey, do you know what's happening? He doesn't either. Internet doesn't. He can't get his news from anywhere either. So it's like nobody will even know for who knows how many days, weeks, or months what just happened. How long would it take us to even learn, oh, dang, the internet's out everywhere? Because it affects so many different things. It's not just Facebook and websites.
Yeah.
It's people's
everyday jobs.
Everyday
life.
jobs are,
Yeah.
and who knows how the grid is affected by.
And I'll pause. I'm gonna pause you right there, and I'm gonna say, how smart is Elon Musk for booting all these satellite internet? You know, that's what he does. Satellite internet, Starlink, $100 a month. You can get 5G, great internet, whatever.
Yeah, but just assuming that is turned off too.
Yeah,
Assuming that there's a giant mother server that powers everything.
Yeah. Well, there's something. There's definitely a server. Yeah, but it's just crazy how different that is. And, you know, he's developed this other way of communicating.
Yeah.
Through, you know, satellites, and that's just a whole different route. But
so,
I mean, I'm going to go to the store because I live close to one, right? I'm going to just see what's available, and whatever is available, I'm taking just because. Yeah. And it's going to be the essentials, right? We all have tap water. We hate drinking it, but if it's what we have to drink, it's what we have to drink. And we got to hope to God that our supply doesn't get tarnished, right? But I'm grabbing some bottled water. I'm grabbing some, if it's there, like vegetable seeds, you know, I'm grabbing anything that has a seed in it. I'm grabbing the veggies that I can replant. Probably not worrying too much about clothes and things like that, but I don't know. It'd be so crazy to experience. I mean, people in the world have already experienced that stuff like that, looting and just stealing, but I've never gone that far to be like, yeah, it's okay to do that. You know?
No, I think that I would only do that once I realized that in the process of learning what actually happened, because it would take us a while to know the gravity of what happened. You would need to start preparing before you know what's really going on. So there will be people looting early.
There's going to be people that hear about something happening. They'll be like, this can.
You'd have to get in the mix. There's no other way not to.
Yeah, and you need to be first. Like, so if you got to update somehow, some way, internet's out, it's cut at the throat. We're not going to have internet for possibly a year or more.
Yeah, you have to go loot.
You got to go right then, bro.
Yeah, because again, you have to remember that you are broke.
Yeah,
immediately, and have no means through which to even acquire anything. And even people with cash, it virtually turns useless because there's no way to receive or deposit that cash anymore. So that it does have value, because over time we'll learn to again trade for, and barter for things, and cash will have some value, but it won't be as valuable as it is now, because it doesn't have any value. You can't put it in the bank and be rich because the banks are closed. The banks need internet.
Yeah.
So it's like everything turns to survival mode immediately, especially once you see everybody looting. You have to get in there because everything's going to be gone if you wait.
Well, banks were still alive. I use the word alive, but banks were still kicking before the internet. Right. So there's still ways. We can go back to checks and balance,
but initially,
yeah.
We would have to learn how to get back. So it would be kind of like COVID in the way that everything would be panic at first, and then we would learn how to get around it eventually.
Yeah.
But that initial setback is going to be huge. Like if the internet just stopped working right now, it would be pandemonium for probably a few months.
Do you have AT&T? Mm-hmm. Did your phone? Mm-hmm. Okay, because I was a victim of that.
I was a victim for sure.
Yeah, I'm suing you.
Yeah,
China.
I didn't even realize it at first. I'm on it so much, honestly, that I was kind of like glad that it was down for a while.
Yeah, it really did not affect me. As people were like, "Oh, phone's out," I was like, "All right, cool."
The phones can be out as long as they want to, but the internet in general.
Well, the internet, because the only way I was able to communicate was if I had my Wi-Fi, right? Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I can. If I'm at my house, I can still hit you with a call or a text. I'm fine. But if the internet was out, I'd be like, what am I going to do today?
Can't play Xbox. That's on mine.
Yeah, I'm not tripping on that. But I'm like, I would most likely go in the backyard and be like, okay, I got to create a wind farm.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, as long as you know it's temporary, nobody's going to trip. Like if the entire
the fucking phone said SOS, and that was freaking me out. That was true.
Yeah, I
was like, SOS. I was like, what the fuck? Why are we in trouble?
Yeah.
What's going on? Because we don't know.
Nobody's, yeah.
Right? We don't.
Now imagine that feeling with everything connected to the internet, which compounds the I don't know, because you literally have no source of news.
And then you have to take somebody's word for it.
Right.
Somebody that just like, yo, we're under attack.
Yep.
Get your fucking gun. Hit the Aldi's.
If that happens and somebody tells me that, I'm strapped immediately.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And that's how everybody would act.
Everybody. Well, especially here in Texas
it's
and all the
pandemonium. I'm telling you. It's something.
If you step foot on my property, like, it's different than it was 2 days ago when we had internet. It's like, hey man, what the fuck you doing here?
Yeah.
We can't have like talk over there unless I know you.
Right.
And then even in, states like
it's
that.
more than just losing your Facebook and your Netflix, bro. Like it's when you,
which are things I do not care about.
Don't care about it. If Facebook went down, cool. I'll figure out something else.
Yeah.
If Netflix went down, cool. Like if we could read books, like it's no big deal. But if everything cut off and you had no way of knowing what was going on, everybody would flip.
Yeah.
People are going to scramble have to secure and defend and go get your own supplies, and it's you're left no other choice but to participate, because how else are you going to survive this?
Well, your first step is you're going to try to get some type of media notion. So like you're going to want to go to the truck or your car where radio's available,
right?
And just try to hear what's going on in the world. Damn, just talking about it makes me want to go get a radio. Right. Do I need a regular radio?
I mean, you made me want to move to a remote land in Elgin and start growing my own crops. So I need to, and definitely take all my money out of the bank and start a cash duffel bag or something. But
you know what's so crazy is how expensive land is, because as a realtor, I see some of the, all these places developing, in Tuttle and Mustang area, particularly like 5 acres there going to cost you $150,000 minimum. Okay. Probably more. 160 acres in a Marlow, Oklahoma costs $900,000.
Dang. Wow.
And it's just like, and the same if you even go even further south to like your Walters or your Temple or like all these other little towns or your Faxons, Geronimo's, like, all the land down here is so cheap, and it really makes you think, like, man, do I need to grab some of this land real quick? Because things are just slowly just spreading out. You see your Caches and your Elgins, and I'm speaking of little towns in our area here, if you're listening. But that's hello.
It's Teddy.
Teddy scared me. We're under attack.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just wild to me. I hate to just veer off like that when I started thinking about land, because I look at it all the time. I'm just like, damn, man, it's so expensive up there.
And it's just going to appreciate.
Yeah. I just want some land.
Wish I had 900,000. You know how many gardens you could have for 150 acres?
Bro, you're talking about, you can tuck yourself way back in there.
And never be messed with.
Yeah.
I have my own internet supply. I have my own food and water tower.
Oh, just hope the satellite shit that Elon's got still kicking around, and
that would be a good separation from society in a situation like that too. You won't be messed with very much because you're in your own little pocket, little world.
Right. But then there's very, 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 very few people that have those things, and we see it a lot, people with their own farms and living out in the country. But, you take a LA where there's so many people, or even Oklahoma City and Tulsa, those areas are well populated, but there's nothing like those huge cities like a New York or LA, Sacramento, all those huge, like California and Florida. And like, you think about the pandemonium in those areas compared to ours.
Oh yeah.
Dude, there's
especially a lot considering that a lot of inner cities are already impoverished.
Yeah.
You know, those are going to be, that would be such a catastrophic event worldwide.
And that's why cyber security and, you know, things like that are very important, because it can happen at any time. Which, if it was a cyber attack that happened, you know, that was pretty crazy that it just slipped in there like that. Like, oh yeah, you don't have.
It would be a government conspiracy for sure.
It already is. It already is. There's already people out there saying that, you know, military intelligence that has said that it was a cyber attack and it wasn't just a outage or a solar flare from the sun. Because I've heard multiple different things.
It's a test run, man. See how we responded to one minor. It's pretty minor inconvenience in the grand scheme of things.
Very minor.
But
if
people were losing their minds over it.
Yeah.
Not me.
I've seen some videos of people like walking up to AT&T just losing their shit. Like, we don't have service.
Like, what in the world do you think the retail branch of AT&T in your local town has to do with a national power outage? People are crazy, bro.
It's wild to me how much people care about those things.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's most of the world, though.
Most of the world.
Or most of the United States, I should say.
So next time, let's talk about OJ. Maybe we can talk about that. Maybe a little more 9/11 and Bitcoin, because I'm going to do some research on those things.
OJ will probably venture us into some weird shit. We definitely we went all over the place today, but it was a good start.
It connects, though. I know we feel like that we're rambling and getting off subject, but it's all connected in conversation.
It is, yeah.
It's been a good one. I think that we talk about a lot of things that make me want to go and do some research and improve my knowledge on certain topics. So that I definitely appreciate this show for that.
That's one thing we got to get down, because I'm like, just so like, if I was like knew I was going to talk about Bitcoin, I probably would have spit a little more factoids, but you know, I'm just rambling on the shit I might know.
That's what the Brofessors is about, man. We know a little
about a lot.
And we'll know more about Bitcoin next week. But I'm gonna take you to OJ class next week. We'll
hey,
over there. I'm reading the.
You ever seen
that video? And then he goes.
Like, we know you did it, motherfucker.
Listen, there's not a question on who did that. We'll talk about it.
But somebody was with him.
Definitely. And we're going to talk about it next time on The Brofessors.
See you next week.
We appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Triz and Riz, The Brofessors. Hit that subscribe on whatever platform you listen or watch.
Subscribe. Share.
Yeah.
All that. To all four of you that listen, we appreciate
that.
Hell yeah.
See y'all next time. Bye.